To get started with Windows kernel debugging, you're going to need a couple of stuff. First thing is the actual machine you want to debug. In my case, I'm going to debug Windows 7 running here on VirtualBox. I have this virtual machine ready. And the second thing you need is the Windows debugger, which is often shortened WinDbg. I'm going to put information about how to install this in the description. It's pretty simple. You can just find this on the Windows Store or install it with winget. I'm going to follow this official guide on how you can actually set up kernel debugging. And I'm going to start with setting up the port. Since I'm working with Windows 7, which is quite old, I'm going to use COM ports. Specifically, I'm going to configure the COM port to go to some kind of pipe. And for this, I'm going to go to the settings of my virtual machine. I'm going to go here for serial ports. And I'm going to enable the first serial port. I'm going to make this host pipe. What this is going to do is basically connect this serial port of the virtual machine to a pipe on my host. So my debugger can actually connect to this pipe and talk with the virtual machine. I'm going to uncheck this. It's not going to connect to an existing pipe. It's going to actually create the pipe. Finally, I'm going to put here the path to the pipe. It's going to be something similar to this. Except here I can put whatever name I want for the pipe to have. I can also copy this because I'm going to use this later in the debugger. Now I can just go ahead and press here OK. And let's go ahead and boot this machine. Okay, Windows 7 finished booting up. I'm just going to put this aside here. And I'm going to scroll up in this guide, specifically to this section, which talks about how to actually set up debugging on the virtual machine. I'm going to open a CMD with administrator rights. And I'm going to run two of these commands. First one, I'm going to enable debugging with bcdedit. Afterwards, I'm going to run also bcdedit. And I'm going to configure some debug settings. This is going to be serial debugging. And I'm going to configure here the port number. Since we chose COM1, I'm just going to put 1 over here. Finally, we configure the baud rate. Afterwards, our machine is ready for debugging. All we need to do is just restart the computer. Before that, I'm going to actually prepare the kernel debugging. So I'm going to open the Windows debugger right now. I'm going to open the debugger with administrator rights as well. I'm going to go here to File. And I'm going to press on Attach to Kernel. Make sure you're on the COM tab over here and select Pipe and Reconnect. Afterwards on the port, I'm going to paste the pipe path that I made in VirtualBox. And I'm going to press here OK. Now it's just waiting for the machine to connect. To actually make my machine connect, I'm going to need to restart the Windows 7. As you can see now, the debugger has braked. It has paused Windows from starting, and it's actually on a breakpoint right now. And another tip before I'm continuing on, if you don't see any of this console, make sure that command is open, so you go here to View and then Command. To make Windows actually continue booting, I'm going to actually just run the G command, which will cause it to continue. Nice, so the machine finished booting up. Before I'm continuing on, I'm just going to show you another website. This one is called ntdoc. I'm going to put also a link for this in the description. This helps me get documentation about a lot of undocumented functions. Some of these functions are documented, but a lot of the native API is undocumented, and this will just help me get unofficial documentation for that. Specifically, I'm going to search for the API ntterminate process. And this is the API I'm going to actually create a breakpoint on in the kernel. And I'm going to show you how you can actually check out the exit status that was passed in. Now let's go back to the virtual machine. I'm going to open a command prompt. Afterwards, I'm going to go back to my debugger, and I'm going to break by pressing on Control and then pause break. Now you can see I can start running commands, and Windows is now frozen. You cannot do anything here, it's all frozen. And now I can start placing breakpoints. Before placing the breakpoint, I want to actually search for the function I want to put the breakpoint on. And for this, I have the X command, which lets me examine symbols. I'm going to specifically focus on the symbols related to NT. So I'm going to start with writing NT and then exclamation mark. And now here I actually put the name of the function I'm going to search for. I'm going to put a wildcard before, and then I'm going to put the word process, and then another wildcard. You can see I'm getting quite a lot of results. I'm just going to focus the search a little bit and add the word terminate before. Nice, so we have only 3 results here. I'm going to put the breakpoint on this function, so I'm going to copy this. For the breakpoint, I'm going to run the command bp and then the name of the function I want to put the breakpoint on. Finally, I'm going to run g to continue the execution of my machine. Now to actually trigger this breakpoint, I want to exit from some process, and I'm going to exit from cmd here. Specifically, if you take a look at the help of exit, you can see I just passed in the exit code and it's going to exit with that exit code. So this will be perfect because then I'm going to see this exit code here in the debugger. Since I'm going to see the exit code here in hex, let's choose something indicative that will pop in the eye. I'm going to open Python for this. Let's put, for example, 1234 in hex. So I'm going to use this decimal number, 4660. Now you can see the debugger has stopped on the breakpoint. Let's go back here to the debugger. And if I run the kb command, this will enable me to see the first 3 arguments that were passed to the function ntTerminate process. This comes from the stack. Specifically, we can see here the 1234 that we passed as an exit code. And this is actually from the kernel, so I'm seeing this as it is called in the kernel. By the way, I forgot to mention on the beginning of the video that the machine I'm debugging is Windows 7 32-bit. Subscribe for more programming videos, and thanks for watching.